welcome. This is the ECA Public Sector Committee Community Engagement Webinar number 5. And you can find more about this series at earthquakecountry.org/community. For those of you who are part of the ECA or new, we're a big group across the state, lots of people who've participated in various ways. 4,000 leaders in their communities and their organizations and government and business and many other groups. And many of those kind of are served by the statewide committees we have, local regional alliances. We have funding from Cal OES, and I'll say a bit more about that. We're headquartered at USC's Southern California Earthquake Center, which administers the Earthquake Country Alliance with support from Cal OES and FEMA. And we just really, if you aren't currently a member, go to earthquakecountry.org/join. And it's a simple process. You'll get on our email list and be aware of upcoming activities. So a little bit, there is a program. The country is fortunate to have a real coordinated earthquake hazards reduction program that does provide money through FEMA to states, including that Cal OES applies for each year. And part of that then is subawarded to us to administer ECA and our education, outreach, and mitigation activities. And there's other agencies too. And we have some support for ECA also from some of those other organizations, including the National Science Foundation and US Geological Survey. We have statewide activities, and just make sure you know about our websites at earthquakecountry.org and in Spanish at terremotos.org. We support some Tsunami Preparedness Week, which was just in March, at the end of March each year. And of course, coming up in October, Great California ShakeOut, and registration is open. If you are a longtime registrant for ShakeOut, you may have even gotten or should have gotten an email yesterday with information. And some of you may have found out about this webinar as it was highlighted in that email, that ShakeOut email. You can find out about more of our webinars and other events at earthquakecountry.org/calendar. I mentioned our committees. These are the sector-based committees that we have. And if you're part of one of these sectors or know others who are, please do visit this page, earthquakecountry.org/committees. That's also where you can find out how to contact the coordinator of all those committees, who is Sharon Sandow, Deputy Director for Earthquake Country Alliance, who is with us on the webinar today and is moderating the Q&A and also helping to let everybody know about all these links. And from that page, Sharon, if you could put the title above the link to the full thing, that'd be great. Thanks. Or the description. And then also our region, we have outreach bureaus, we have events bureaus that in each region, and that coordinate statewide. If you want a speaker, either virtual or at an in-person event, or want us to come out and have a table at your event, you can go to earthquakecountry.org/events, and there's a request form. We also have a participation bureau that you can be a part of to help recruit participation for our major activities in your local region, especially if you're with a county or city or other large group that wants to increase participation locally. And if you're like a public information officer or interested in coordinating with the media or a member of the media, we have a media bureau you can be a part of too. So at the end, you'll see how to reach us, but it's info@earthquakecountry.org. Hopefully you know that our key messaging is along the lines of the 7 steps to earthquake safety, what to do before, during, and after. And it's a really great way to send, great messaging to send to people if they're asking, what do I do? To send them to just the Earthquake Country or Terremotos website as a whole, or specifically to the pages that there for the 7 steps. We also have new materials in multiple languages here at earthquakecountry.org/languages. And that then takes us that you should look at and download lots of, we have 12 sets of documents now in 50 languages. So to get to the content of today's webinar, I want to introduce the chair of the ECA Public Sector Committee, Crisanta Gonzalez, who's with the Community Preparedness and Engagement, or she's a lead for that for LA City Emergency Management Department.
Hi, everybody. So again, thank you for joining us. I see we have a large amount of attendees, so it's very exciting to see you all here. And as Mark mentioned earlier, this is our 5th engagement webinar. We've had the prior 4 that you can see. If you've missed them for any reason, you can go back and learn more and view them at earthquakecountry.org/community. So hope you will click on those if you weren't able to join us for them. But today we have a very exciting webinar for you as well. So today we're going to hear from Carla Sullivan-Dilley of the Coachella Valley Emergency Preparedness Network. The mission of the Coachella Valley Emergency Preparedness Network, or CVDPN, is an NGO nonprofit, and it's to train, educate, and network all persons of the Coachella Valley on individual and community preparedness. And they do this in several ways: by creating and developing relationships with community partners, with leaders, both NGO and governmental, homeowners associations, property management companies, first responders, and many, many more. It's an excellent example of the ECA CVDN. So please ensure, this way they ensure that all the community disaster plans take into consideration and also provide with various disabilities and DAFN needs for those plans that may be left out. But their flagship program is the Disaster Planning Academy, which is a 6-hour course that provides community leaders with the comprehensive education, training, tools, and templates to create their own community plan. It's pretty consistent with CERT standards and one that follows the first responders use. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Carla so that she can share with us this wonderful, wonderful group and network. So Carla?
And I'm sorry, just one second, Carla. There's a comment in the chat about copying links from the chat. And we found that some people have a challenge in it. There's not a setting we can change. You should be able to click the link. And we will be sending or posting every link shared in the chat onto the page where you registered. So those all will be available after within a few days, along with the recording. So don't worry about trying to capture them all, because they'll be there in a nice file for you. And so
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
So with that, we'll turn it over to Carla, and then we will follow up with her with some Q&A and open discussion. So Carla, please.
Okay, thanks so much. Well, welcome everyone, whether you've joined our webinar or maybe you weren't able to join us today and you're watching this from the website. Anyway, yes, empowering leaders in your community. Thank you, Mark and ECA, for asking me to present today. On behalf of Coachella Valley Disaster Preparedness Network, we are just really pleased to share what we've been able to do with all of you. What CVDPN does, that's a really great question. We provide programs, education, community services. We share information is something that I'm just going to continue to focus on. We don't make up the information. We get the information from the experts, ECA being one of those. We work with the communities, our partners, whether they be government or just regular community partners. And we look for the organizations in our section of Coachella Valley that every community has their main players. So everyone's going to have to look within their own community to figure out who those are. How to build reach and impact. Well, there's a few key points. It's taken us a few years to really narrow things down, but you have to know your mission. It has to be a memorable mission. So when somebody asks you off the cuff, what do you guys do? And it's very easy for me to say we train, we educate, and we network. And that's my own little acronym for 10. We are a 10 when it comes to disaster preparedness. And I can remember T for train. I can always remember it till right now. We train, we educate, and we network. Even when it stumps me, I can always come back to it. Know who your customers are. Who are the people that you can reach? Well, every single person that lives in Coachella Valley is our customer. And how are we going to identify and train and partner? I use the word network. I know our name, our acronym is very long, CVDPN, but it tells everyone who we are. We're Coachella Valley. We are a disaster preparedness network. We share everything. So depending again on where you live and who you're trying to reach and what kind of a community you are, the Coachella Valley is it's a vacation destination for many. So there's a lot of property management companies because there's a lot of HOAs, homeowner associations. And we realized long ago, if we just go country club by country club by country club by community, it's going to take us a long time to get through all of them. But if we can reach out to property management companies, for example, that maybe have 118 properties, we can, through the management company, share our message much more effectively. Our non-governmental organizations, again, who are the key ones in your area? Look for those. The local nonprofits serving specific groups within the large membership. Again, the Chamber of Commerce has been a big help to us, as well as all of our different 9 cities and their emergency management coordinators. And then look to associations, retired teachers, your churches. Again, whatever is key in your neighborhood. And how does CVDPN find and train community leaders? Well, every chance I get, I seem to eat, breathe, and drink CVDPN. I'm always out there looking and talking with people. If I see them in a uniform, I will reach out to them and ask them, oh, what do you do? And oh, and they go, what do you do? And I go, well, I do disaster preparedness. Oh, well, we do that on our campus. Ooh, campus, I just got a new source. We just continue to present valuable information to any of the associations that request it. And we work with them and we network with them and we set them up with other communities, maybe of equal size or someone that's just created a disaster plan. They will agree to mentor a new community so that the word gets spread. And then of course, we share all of our educational programs with them. And if you look around and you see, who cares about disaster preparedness? Who used it in their prior life, maybe before they're retired? Well, anyone that's fire department, sheriffs, police, law enforcement, and especially a military background, anyone in the medical field, teachers, scouts, even veterinarians, ham radio operators, people that have done building, that understand safety, can be wonderful resources. And again, I go to the church members and also all of the service clubs that are the key service clubs in your area. So for those of you that don't really know Coachella Valley that well, it's made up of 9 different cities. And then we have very large unincorporated areas that fall under the county and are administered through the supervisor's office. And then we also have about 12 different tribes. So in the olden days, CVDPN really just focused on homeowner associations, HOAs. But through the last 4+ almost 5 years of becoming a nonprofit, we have really expanded our reach. We have also expanded not just English speaking materials, but also having all of our materials in Spanish. Oh, and if you look at that slide and you see those 10s along there, that's the 10 freeway. And if any of you are geographically challenged like I am, I'll give you a hint. That's our main freeway in and out of Coachella Valley. And it also runs on top of a couple of major earthquake fault lines. And those earthquake fault lines have gas lines on top of them. So we can be a very exciting place to live. The birth and evolution of CVDPN. Overall, CVDPN started as just as a grassroots organization, some people from the north side of the 10 freeway going, wow, we're isolated out here. We don't even have a fire station. This was in the year 2000. And they got some help from Sunline Transit, the local transportation group. And pretty soon they started to develop some plans. The north side of the 10 freeway caught on and they developed a group. I came in maybe around 12, 13 years ago to Coachella Valley, where I've lived full time for 15 years, though I'd owned out here since 1998. And I started attending meetings because my wonderful husband volunteered my services to our country club to help reinvigorate and invent the disaster plan. So I attended as many meetings as I could find. And what I found is that my prior background before I did retail, and then I did events for a city and created all the programs, that they weren't easy to locate. The locations were different. The topics weren't always posted. And it was an all volunteer run organization, and they just needed some help with structuring. Long story short, through the approval of the emergency management department, we had a joint meeting with the north and the south, and we decided to merge, and we did that. And that was all very good for a while until we realized we needed a website. Well, we didn't have any money. So we went to emergency management department, and they were just honest and said, we don't have money that we can give you for that either. If you really want to make a difference and you believe that you have something to share, you're going to need to become a nonprofit. And that we did on August 9th, 2017, and we have not looked back yet. So don't be afraid if you feel stymied because you don't have money. We did not have money, and it doesn't happen overnight, but you have to start somewhere. And I'm really proud of where we are today. So just to reiterate, once again, good speech making is tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them again. So the mission of CVDPN is to prepare citizens, again, all ages, of the Coachella Valley for catastrophic events by providing training, education, networking, now you know how I can remember that, opportunities. CVDPN envisions all communities. So I live in a community of 900 homes. Should there be a catastrophic event within our community, we will take care of each other until the help can arrive. And these days, we're looking at it could be several weeks. A big statement that I need to enforce with all of you is we are not first responders. I may turn into that in my own community if I happen to be here in an event. But what CVDPN is known for is education. Thanks. Programs, education, and community services. So again, this is what we do. We create educational programs, and we're doing community service. We were so excited to start our planning academy, which had been something that I had a vision of, but I wasn't skilled to draft nor write that. But we did have a board member with 40 years disaster preparedness and disaster management background, and that is Tony Ferrara, one of our instructors. We were prepared. I had this vision of creating an HOA, homeowner association plan that was consistent, because once I got more involved in CVDPN, the calls kept coming in. Well, I have to put the plan together for my community and I don't know where to start. And I have to tell you, giving that one answer to somebody takes a long time. So that vision of creating a plan and a template and training people, just like for those of you that have gone through CERT, Community Emergency Response Team Training, you had 20 hours of training. Well, we've gotten this down to about 6 hours in person. It's called the Planning Academy, and it teaches the lead person in all of the HOAs or your churches or your Rotary Club or whoever it might be, how to put together a disaster plan that is consistent. And those that choose to follow it in Coachella Valley, it's been vetted by the Emergency Management Department. And we know that it includes all the important components. So when did we launch this? February of 2020. We had our first of 2 of our training sessions. And there was this thing that happened in Coachella Valley, maybe it happened to you too, called the pandemic. We didn't let it stop us. So I'm going to share more. We were fortunate that we had applied for a Listos grant, Listos meaning ready in Spanish. And I was made aware of it through the Inland Empire Community Foundation. And you can advance, thank you. We actually ended up, we applied for the first grant and we did get that. And we were very successful in reaching out to people, and it was engagement based. What is an engagement? It means that I meet with you, I talk with you, possibly in person, but most likely, via Zoom or webinar because of the pandemic. We were supposed to do X amount. In the first 6 months, we had exceeded that. So they allowed us to apply for a second grant and then a third grant. So we went from our first real big grant of $500 to getting $110,000 through Listos, California, which was administered by the Inland Empire Community Foundation that happened to see us on the news and reached out to us. So you need to be out there, you need to be talking about your mission and sharing it because you never know who might see you on TV. So we started our planning academy, and then we had a little bit of a hiccup, but we still managed to reach out to 28,000 individuals in that year and a half through the Listos grant. So what did we do for some of the people that we did not reach out to in person? Well, we did have a good website, but we continued to improve and make a much better website, one that I'm very proud of. I hope you all take the time to look at it. I had someone contact me last night that had just attended CERT training in Palm Desert. And of course, 20 hours of training, she's overwhelmed. And I said, let's talk tomorrow. But before we talk, do me a favor and please take a look at our website. I think it will help you. And I did have about a 45-minute conversation with her this morning. And she said, it was so easy to understand. So we have expanded our website and we have a video library with disaster response skill series, as well as many other exciting programs, some of which have been done through Earthquake Country Alliance. Next. Okay, what do you do for children? Okay, we'll go back to Stop the Bleed. That is just one program. I had had the privilege of attending at one of our local hospitals probably 4 or 5 years ago. And sometimes I don't want to say I over-exaggerate, but some things to me personally were life-changing. This educational program, it taught me, because I don't have a medical background, that within 3 minutes you can bleed out and die. And if you have some basic, simple training that anyone can do, you can save somebody's life. We do have this video on our website. We ask you, if you don't know about it, to take a look at it, check with your hospitals and see where they might be offering it. But again, this is just day in, day out. It doesn't have to do with an earthquake or a flood or a windstorm or whatever. It could just be an accident that happens at your neighbor's home or to one of your family members. So on with our education. we consider ourselves very inclusive, where we train, educate, and network from the youngest of the young. And that would be our Rocket Rules program, which is a safety skills training of all different levels. And we start with the young children. And then we have our programs that go all the way up. I don't know, we've got board members in their 80s and we've got associates that are in their 90s. So we don't discriminate. We do offer English and Spanish because that is the primary languages in the Coachella Valley. And Rocket Rules, I am proud to say, was created by some residents in Rancho Mirage, and they started the Hero in You Foundation. Again, a wonderful option for children. And you get the children excited, they get their parents excited. Next. Building community and government partnerships. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit more. You need a strong foundation of volunteers before you go out, and you need, again, to know what your mission is, and you need to share with your base the excitement. And you need to collect some statistics that can be very helpful when you go out to the government agencies to be able to say that, wow, alone we had 3,000 volunteer hours this month. And that's not just from our board. We enlisted volunteers from within our own communities and to do very important task-oriented projects. So we enlist volunteers for very specific needs. And I'll talk about that a little bit more, but you need to make sure when you enlist volunteers, they know what they're, the good that they're doing for the cause. So you need to make sure to educate them. Building community and government partnerships. Again, I had never heard of FSTI, another acronym, Fire Services Training Institute. When LISTOS, through that grant, we were supposed to be doing CERT programs, but because of the pandemic, we were not doing in-person training. They had money set aside. So they worked together up in Sacramento and said, what can we offer to all of these communities to still create the LISTOS messaging of getting ready? Long story short, it was engagement driven. We offered it to all of the HOAs and anyone on our constant contact email list. We had 30 that were very interested. Sadly, timing is everything in the desert. This started in about June or July, where we have several thousand people go back to their other homes. So we didn't have our quote unquote full house. We ended up with 30 that were interested of communities, and 11 completed all the paperwork. What that did for us was bring in education through all of these 11 HOAs. They educated their communities, and for every engagement they made, they got $20 put in a kitty bank account where they could purchase disaster preparedness equipment for their own individual community. So we collectively had over 180,000, and then just alone, specifically Sun City Palm Desert ended up with over $101,000 worth of equipment, including 2 trailers. Community partnerships. What does one do when they get the phone call that there is a huge 18-wheeler truck that has pallets of heavy equipment? You reach out to businesses in your community and you say, I need help. Is there anyone with a loading dock that would be willing to receive this merchandise until we can get those HOAs out to gather them? And we did that with Wheaton Moving and Storage. One of our members suggested it, and they worked beautifully. They actually, even for some of the smaller communities, did the deliveries for them. Look around your communities at the resources that you have that you don't have but need. Next. So Planning Academy Spotlight. How do we make that happen? It's written, we get it promoted, we have people registered, but it costs money. So this is where I have been trying to create, just besides community partners, which are very important, sponsorships. I'm very pleased with the relationship that CVDPN has on the Office on Aging. And it started because I knew of their retired senior volunteer program where we could have them calculate all of our volunteer hours. And if I did a grant, I had someone that I had been sending those hours to, and I could honestly say, gee, in our grant, we had over 4,000 hours. And so the Office on Aging has provided us with 2 Planning Academy trainings where we have been able to train over 50 different HOAs. Partnership. The Great California ShakeOut, Earthquake Country Alliance. Do you see a trend here? Drop, cover, hold on. CVDPN did not invent that. They have borrowed it to share with others. I am very happy with the relationship we have with Earthquake Country Alliance. We've been part of several webinars, and one that we held in October prior to the shakeout focused on access and functional needs and people that may have disabilities within your community. If someone has hard of hearing issues, or they're not able to see well, or they have problems if there's an event and you haven't pre-identified them ahead of time. And how are you going to reach out to them? How are you going to communicate to them? And that's what that webinar was all about. And that is still on the ECA website if you're interested in looking at that. And all of these communities were able to take that information and build it into their shakeout drills and their everyday best practices within their communities. CERT training is the standard for emergency and disaster preparedness training, not just in California, but all across the United States. It's a standard 20-hour classroom training with practical exercise at the end. And we've worked with a number of the cities, and we just help publicize it so that people can know about it and sign up. Generally, they have a cap of about 40 attendees. Some cities, it's free. Some, there may be a small fee, but I encourage everyone to do CERT training. Because of the pandemic, a hybrid course, it had been in work, but the timing couldn't have been more perfect, where an online CERT training has been offered. Now, is it as good as a 20-hour in-person training? No. Is Planning Academy not in person for 6 hours of training as effective? No. But have you ever heard that expression? Some training is better than none. Well, trust me on this. Both of these options are an excellent resource where some of the people in Coachella Valley can spend their hot summer days learning about how to be prepared. Thanks. Continuing to find the resources and securing funding, sometimes it just comes about. Southern California Edison had heard about what we were doing out here, and they decided they wanted us to participate in a grant proposal. And I am pleased to say we provided 2 different planning academies for them. And I have just completed the grant proposal for 21-22. So keep your fingers crossed. With their help, we may be offering more planning academy. So partnering with NGOs, that was something I mentioned at the very beginning. How did we get out to 120, or how did we get and benefit from that $110,000 grants? How did we get out to people? How did we get to 28,000 people? Well, we looked to the food insecure and vulnerable populations. And we worked with Find Food Bank and other food distribution sites to help hand out masks, hand sanitizer, gloves, and disaster preparedness equipment. And we did both. So that was very important to us. And currently you have other groups such as RACES, the ham radio amateur civil emergency services, and other groups, because communication anytime is important, let alone in a major disaster. So these are just a few of the NGOs that we would be partnering with. Okay, aligning with community partners. Again, I'm not going to read them all. You can do that, but you're going to see some of the names of people that we have partnered with. Now, there's two differences. I may partner with these people. I may not get money from them, but their partnering is invaluable. So you're going to have a combination of both. Don't always just look at what it's in for you if you can get money from someone. Having a partner such as Earthquake Country Alliance that I can count on for current educational materials that we know are what need to be shared with the residents in Coachella Valley, that's priceless. Thanks. Stay visible. I think I already mentioned this. Branding. Everywhere we go, we have our pull-up banners, we have a tablecloth, we have signage, and keep that messaging going, even down to my last little name tag. I wear it when I'm off the clock, so to speak. Continuing, whether we're doing a national night out or we're doing an event for Indian Wells recently, a safety event, or a food distribution site, make sure that they see the name CVDPN. Oh, and those labels I was talking about, you can see the Listos labels, the round circular ones, and then you can see CVDPN that ended up on thousands and thousands and thousands of booklets and brochures. Recently, after we did about 10 events the last few months, and we had all this wonderful information to share. Everybody needed a place to put it. So we invested in our bags. And I was so excited at the first event we shared it with at Monterey Country Club at their amazing expo where over 200 people attended, and was to see a sea of red CVDPN bags doing what they're supposed to do, carry their important materials, but be the silent salespeople and market CVDPN. Next. Have a social media presence. I know many of us have been a little shy of that. It's not necessarily our first nature, and maybe that over 65 age group, but if you're not doing social media, you're not doing your group a service. So we are on Facebook, we network with other groups, they share our things, we share theirs, it's wonderful. Again, our website is amazing, please visit it. I do invite you to do that. Get a relationship with your local news station. We have one here in Coachella Valley. So make sure you're in the news regularly, that they hear you. Make sure you have a marketing component to your plan, that you're communicating consistently with your following. With us, we use constant contact, and if possible, maybe you have a newsletter, or maybe you're able to put it into your church bulletin or your Retired Teachers Association bulletin, or better yet, your community newsletter. Train, recognize, honor, and thank all volunteers, sponsors, and partners. That goes a long way. And I will tell you right now that the things that have happened with CVDPN were not the accomplishment of one person, two person, three person. We have a 17-member board with our advisors. Each and every one of them has contributed their area of expertise. And I want to go on record as saying, thank you again for your work, and all other volunteers. I was at an event a week ago where we recognized several hundred volunteers. Collectively from that year, had we paid the volunteers per hour, it would have equaled over $1.5 million. So our volunteers, again, are priceless. And we have two special volunteers. One, Sharon Huddleston, our vice president, who received the Outstanding Senior Inspiration Award, and also our community partner, Benny, that has the Rocket and Rules Foundation. So a shout out to having some of our people. They're also giving in many other areas across Coachella Valley. The places where we get money, they are important. They continue to keep our educational programs going and to cover our expenses. So again, you're going to have a balance. Make sure you have good community partners and relationships, but also find some people that are willing to provide some money to keep your educational programs going. Create your balance. We're always actively recruiting. If there's anyone out there that would like to join our board, you know where to contact me. But seriously, our board has been amazing, and they have stuck in there through all of the pandemic, and that has not been an excuse for us. So I applaud all 4,885 hours our board gave us in 2021. Thank you. Next. So this is how you join our team. You can call me later. Thanks. If you would like to know more about CVDPN and see what kind of emails we put out and the programs that we promote, just go to our website, www.cvdpn.org, and add yourself to our email list. So a few other things I just wanted to say before we go to questions and answers is take pictures. That expression, a picture is worth 1,000 words. We have found that when we capture pictures at all of our events, it's so much easier to share with a potential sponsor. So you start small, but take pictures. Have somebody that is your picture person for every event. And that's it. I'm here for questions and answers.
Thank you, Carla. So there was 3 questions in the Q&A. Do you have any preparedness information for those with physical disabilities?
You know what? I am going to say that this is one area that I would definitely have them go to Earthquake Country Alliance. They have done an excellent job encapsulating it. So there's generic information that we have, and then there's very specific. And ECA, Earthquake Country Alliance, they have taught me and our board how to be much more inclusive and sensitive. So I can't compete with that.
And I'll just add, thank you, Carla. I did put a link in the chat. So earthquakecountry.org/accessibility has our various documents and graphics, some of them in 15 languages now, specifically for people with disabilities, access and functional needs, and others, including what to do during an earthquake if you're not able to get down on the ground and get under something for shelter, the alternative approaches. And that link just put again here. And then also one of our sector-based committees is the Accessibility Committee. And if anyone here is interested in being a part of that, also reach out to us, Sandow, SANDOW @usc.edu is the email address to find out about joining any of our committees.
Okay, and then Carla, looks like there's 2 more questions in the chat. Is there an outline for the Preparedness Academy?
Is there an outline for the Preparedness Academy? Is this a setup? This was being discussed this morning with a couple of our graduates and some people that are looking. So I will say, yes, there is in our Planning Academy. But one of the discussions we had today was paring it down more into bullet points. So just like when you leave 20 hours of CERT training, when you leave 6 hours of Planning Academy training, it can be a little overwhelming. So to have a step-by-step checklist of these are the things you need to do. And not to get into details, but just to say, if you live in an HOA, one of the first things you need to do is find out, is there a disaster plan? And is the board possibly in favor of it, or do they need some education? And then you can fill in all the other boxes.
Okay, and the last question is, which of your special guests are involved in Rocket Rules?
Oh, which of our special guests?
Yeah, that's what the question says, yes.
Okay. Which of our special guests? Well, Rocket Rules is a program that focuses on different levels of safety. And it does start with the younger children. I have read Rocket Rules to my grandchildren, and we won't go there, but they're now 6 days old and 2.5 and 7 and 8, and they all know Rocket. And we share them with the schools. We're sharing them with Desert Recreation District, and we're looking to expand in other areas. We have worked with the tribes, and again, Rocket Rules is something I didn't mention, but their curriculum has been vetted through, and they have worked with Earthquake Country Alliance and many of the other experts in the field. Again, they didn't just all of a sudden create curriculum. This program now has gone nationwide, and senior resource officers, and I'm going to say about 35 states, have now adapted the Rocket Rules program for children. And instead of calling something active shooter, which is not appropriate to K through 5, it may be using your senses. Are you hearing something? Are you smelling something? Did you see something that doesn't feel right? And so everything is all about safety, but just different levels. I hope that helps. If not, I know that Bunny and her board would be happy to get more specific with you.
And I've been showing the Rocket Rules website,
Yeah.
rocketrules.org, earthquake specific, rocketrules.org/earthquakes. But you can see that there's just a ton of great resources that you can download, videos you can view, and materials you can request.
Yeah, it's a great program. I can't say enough about it. And what it really does do is stimulate the parents, because they have to read it to those age groups of K through 5 generally, and it gets them involved. And that's what it's all about, is getting personal preparedness, your family prepared, and then within your community.
One thing just to highlight here too, it's been in the chat, we do have a survey, surveymonkey.com/r/778L8CK. That will be on the website for where you'll find the webinar recording as well. So earthquakecountry.org/community. If you can't copy it or you can't note that down here, we really do appreciate your feedback. It helps us plan our future materials. There was an earlier question. Did we ask it about the strategies for preparedness for older residents who are isolated and can't or don't want to interact with others?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And that is one of the areas that I have worked with the Office on Aging, because they are the ones that handle a lot of the food delivery programs and had to adapt during the pandemic. Food nutrition centers weren't what they used to be. So they had to find a way, to get the meals made and then to get them delivered. And I am going to speak for the Office on Aging, for all the staff that helped with those deliveries. They saw things that they couldn't imagine with isolated people. So it has brought that information much more to the forefront of identifying people that are really isolated. Now, in a community such as mine, that's 900 residents, we have a good plan here. We do know our neighbors. I just got a text message right before I came here that my neighbor Jack is leaving for a week, canceled mail, canceled paper. And that's what we like to do because we take care of each other. And that's what having these disaster plans is all about. Your family and getting to know your neighbors in your community because they may be your first responders.
Carla, it looks like there's one more question in the Q&A.
Sure.
When is the next planning academy? Is it in person or virtual?
Okay. Wow. I really think I have some people out there that are working on my behalf today. The next Planning Academy date has not been set, but I will say that most likely it will be in the fall. What we have found is it's a struggle to put on a lot of these programs during the summer because many of our residents, as I admitted, are snowbirds and they fly out of the Coachella Valley and don't come back until maybe October. And when we do get a sponsorship, we like to get our most bang for our buck, to be honest with you. However, we are sharing with our board of directors tomorrow the completed Planning Academy, condensed to 4 hours on a thumb drive for their review, all in a notebook. And once they review it and we get their feedback, we will be looking at being able to distribute the Planning Academy to community leaders. And again, it's not going to be as good as the 6-hour in-person Tony Planning Academy show, but you know what? They'll get the information that they need. And it doesn't mean that they can't actually come back and take a Planning Academy, but rather than sitting here all summer and not moving forward, it will give them that option. I will be honest, there will be a fee. We haven't decided on that. We're not out to make money with it, just to recover our expenses unless we get a sponsor for it. So I'm going to ballpark and say it's going to be around $50 for the packet of the notebook. And that'll be available to anybody. We purposely did not copyright this material. We want whoever wants to spend the time to help their community get prepared. We just want to share that. That's why we are CVDPN Network.
One comment I just put in the chat in our last 2 minutes here, and someone's already taken me up on it. If there's one activity or action that you'll take based on attending today's webinar, go ahead and type something simple there in the chat. And then there's one last question.
Okay.
Crisanta.
The last question is your organization doing anything on October 20th for the ShakeOut?
Great question again. We always know that the Great California ShakeOut is the third Saturday in October, which I believe is October 20th.
Third Thursday.
What was it?
Third Thursday.
Third Thursday at 10:20 a.m. However, you do not have to do your ShakeOut drill that day if that doesn't work with your organization.
Yeah.
What CVDPN will be doing will be sending out additional emails, encouraging people to go to the ShakeOut website and to register. And basically what this does, it gives ECA a gauge on how involved people are and in what areas they're involved, and if we need to push in another area and promote more. So CVDPN themselves will not be sponsoring an actual event at this point. We all live in communities and we usually participate within those communities. But we will be educators of the ShakeOut and promoters.
Thank you, Carla.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Crisanta, for moderating today's webinar as part of the ECA's Public Sector Committee. Thank you, everyone else, for attending. Thank you to Destiny for all the work to provide sign language interpretation for us today, and for Sharon for managing the chat and the Q&A. And to all of you for attending. I'll give a final word to Crisanta as the chair of the committee, and then we'll complete.
Thank you, Mark. And again, remember, if you would like to participate or join the Public Sector Committee, Sharon has put the information in the chat. We'd love to have you. We're always looking for new members to all the committees within ECA, but of course, I'm going to pitch mine. Carla, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. So much information, such great, and thank you everybody for coming and joining us. So with that, we'll see you again next time for our next webinar. Have a great day, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.